So these attacks almost universally fail, which is why the Russians are losing 1,500 guys a day. That's what they lost in October. You know, getting close to 2,000 people a day. Okay, you got an FPV drone attack, turtle tank, bam, there it goes. Okay, what we've got here, just to set it up, the Russians have got a real training problem. Their individual soldiers are very badly trained. Some of them show up with 2 weeks of training or even 10 days of training or only transit time between Moscow and the zero line. They can't perform any evolutions at night. All of their attacks are in broad daylight. All of their attacks are on this almost quota system. So they occur every day in the same sector. What's worse, we see a road here. They attack down this same road every time. Now, how do I know that? Well, there's wreckage all along this road. So the other bad thing is the Russians, here's the zero line. The Russians constantly attack perpendicular to the zero line. What that means in the Navy, we call this crossing the T. The oncoming Russian vehicle, only the number one vehicle, is the only one that can fire. Meanwhile, every Ukrainian weapon can fire at the column. So these attacks almost universally fail, which is why the Russians are losing 1,500 guys a day. That's what they lost in October. You know, getting close to 2,000 people a day. So we'll go through this, and this is, we'll let the thing play in just a minute, but you'll see the three things that break up Russian attacks. Those are mines, which are relayed every night, first-person drones, and artillery. Now, as we roll this, I want you to watch where the artillery shells fall. They all fall adjacent to the road because the Ukrainians have predetermined the fire solutions. Guy on the radio just goes, fire for effect, give me fire package A. And that means this part of the road and smoke it. So it's good to watch this one. It's about 1:57, and this is almost how every Russian attack comes to grief. All right, of course, we've got an FPV drone coming in here. And you go to the overhead, and there it is. Now watch multiple explosions on the road. That is an artillery salvo coming in. Okay, you got an FPV drone attack, turtle tank, bam, there it goes. Big secondary. Okay, now this tank is trying to shoot its way through the dragon's teeth, right? Cement blocks, pyramids. It's going to fly right in, and there you see the explosion. Some of that smoke there may have been released by the Russians to try to obscure their location. Okay, let's just back up just a little bit. Okay, so you've got a tank with a mine plow, and you can see he's traveling parallel to the road. So they're trying to open up a little bit more of an axis of attack. However, you're still coming perpendicular in column to the zero line. Again, we call that crossing the T. Those attacks are never going to work. So let's see what happens to this guy. Okay, we can see the mine plow. It hit him right in the running lights. And here's his second hit. Interestingly, when you see as the FPV drone approaches a target, you'll often see the video fritz out. That's because the electronic countermeasures on the tank are interfering with the video. But these guys are pretty good. They make their attack, and at a certain point, they just know, I've got a lock on the target. I'm descending at this angle. If I continue that, I'll hit the tank. Other times when you see this video, you will see the battery alert come on. You'll see a blinking light saying land now. They also broadcast, emergency signals to the drone. But as you can see, it doesn't often work.
So wait, it's Russians broadcasting to the drone, basically, go land.
Yes. Yep. That's their countermeasures. They can, jam the video uplink. They can broadcast emergency, signals that would force the drone to land, or, the self-preservation aspects that are built into the DJI, drones. But again, these guys are pretty good. They come in, they get an attack vector. This is the drone operator, and he knows I'm descending at 45 degrees. The target is 100 yards away. I'm just going to continue flying that. You also got a chance to see some of the antennas that are hanging out in front of the drones. You'll notice that these are loops and they are interconnected. They are firing circuits for the drone, so that when it hits and these two things come together, it's an additional firing impulse. The explosive charges are initiated by electric blasting caps. That also prevents the Russians from broadcasting a detonation signal. It won't work. Otherwise, they could blow the drones up in the air. And it's amazing. You get basically two coat hangers twisted together, and that's good enough to keep your drone on target. Okay. Wow, they got those guys.
So was that at night, since it was thermal version?
Two ways you can work your thermal. You can work it on white hot, so that hot items show white, or you can work it on black hot. So I'm looking at this right here, and you can see the people. One guy's on one side of a wall, the other guys are on the other. If you look to the right, I see that warm area there. That may have been a shell impact or a mortar impact. Things stay warm for a while. Sometimes in some situations, you can actually follow people's footprints. As they turn over the dirt, they create a temperature differential. But in this case, the drone operator decided to go for the guy behind the cover. And he did that knowing that once he does that, the other people instinctively are going to run, even though they're actually in cover. And the best thing I would do, I just get over to the other 90-degree turn. And I might kind of be going back and forth. But things are hard on the battlefield. You know, you often don't know what hit you. Was it a mortar? Was it a drone? We don't know the ambient noise here. There could have been incredible noise going on, and you can't figure out what's going on. So it's really crazy on the battlefield. And we sit up here and we watch in perfect comfort. We don't know what those guys were thinking. I think that probably was a mortar hit to the right, because they are all tucked tightly into cover. So, they've got reasons to do that.
Yeah, this reminds me of a quote I just saw a few days ago, where it's like, everyone's a general after the war.
Oh, you got it. Absolutely. I'm willing to give a lot to the guys on the ground, because normally you get hit and you spend the first 20 seconds trying to figure out what's going on. Okay, we can see cope cages don't work too well. And here comes a tank with a little more stuff on it. So you've got an FPV drone, and it's delivering, an explosive package about like this. So if you know what you're doing, the amount of C4 you could put in a Coke can, you could make that blow through a tank. I'm not going to tell you how you do it, but there's very easy ways to manipulate that it doesn't just go off. It will form an explosive jet. And you can actually do something else. If you have some copper or another malleable metal, you can actually make that Coke can now project a slug of molten metal. So, that small amount of C4, 12 ounces, it could take out a tank if you know what you're doing. And believe me, these guys, they know what they're doing. We had a good example right there of the video. As the FPV closed in on the tank, you could see the countermeasures were fritzing the video. But as we can also see, these drones don't travel alone. It's a buddy system, and you've got one guy filming the attack and doing battle damage assessment. If the hit didn't go off, or if the tank keeps going, they vector in more drones. So you've got an upside down wedding cake. Prowling 100 feet and down are first-person drones. 200 or 300 feet up are more intermediate endurance drones. And in the higher airspace are long endurance drones, some of which can fly for 8 or even 21 hours. So that's the modern battlefield.
This is just a short clip of what we're allowed to show here on YouTube. But if you want to watch the full episode, you can join our platform by clicking the link in the description or scanning the QR code on your screen. We put out a new uncensored Battlefield breakdown episode every single week. And to make sure we are not forced to censor something because of the platform we are using, we built our own platform, Basics Insider. So join us today and support independent journalism by clicking the link in the description or going to basicsinsider.com.